Land acknowledgement. As we gather together, we acknowledge the sacred land on which we reside. It has been a site of human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the territory of the Huron-Wendat and Petun First Nations, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. The territory was the subject of Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and Confederacy of the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Today, this gathering place is still the home of many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community on this territory. We are also mindful of broken covenants and the need to strive to make right with all our relations. Last but certainly not least, we acknowledge the people of African descent who were brought here against their own will or in search of a safe place to live their lives and raise their children. Reconnaissance des terres. En nous rassemblant, nous reconnaissons la terre sacrée sur laquelle nous résidons. C'est un site d'activité humaine depuis 15 000 ans. Cette terre est le territoire des Premières Nations Huron-Wendat et Petun, les Scéniques et plus récemment les Mississaugas de la rivière Crédit. Le territoire était sujet de l'alliance de la ceinture Wampum plat avec cuillère, un accord entre la Confédération Iroquois et Confédération des Ojibwe et des nations alliées à partager et à prendre soin pacifiquement pour les ressources autour des Grands Lacs. Aujourd'hui, ce lieu de rassemblement est toujours le foyer de nombreux peuples autochtones de toute l'île de la Tortue et nous sommes reconnaissants d'avoir la possibilité de travailler dans la communauté sur ce territoire. Nous sommes également conscients des alliances brisées et de la nécessité de nous efforcer de guérir toutes nos relations. Dernier point, mais non le moindre, nous remercions les personnes d'ascendance africaine qui ont été amenées ici contre leur volonté ou à la recherche d'un endroit sûr où vivre leur vie et élever leurs enfants.
This webinar provides illustrative information with respect to the subject matter covered and does not represent an official opinion or position of the Black Business and Professional Association. The BBPA makes no representations, warranties, or guarantees as to assume no responsibility for the content or application of the material contained herein, and especially disclaim all liability for any damages arising out of the use or reference to or lines on such material.
Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to the community space, BBPA Space for Financial Literacy. I'm Chanelle Smith, and I'm absolutely delighted to be your host for the next few weeks. Before we dive into this exciting journey, allow me to share a little bit about myself. I've spent years working in the financial industry and studying finance. I am the founder and executive director of TSK Wealth Planners, a nonprofit designed to serve underserved communities. I'm passionate about helping individuals and communities achieve financial wellness. My journey in this field has led me to this wonderful opportunity to be facilitating this program for you guys today. Over the next few weeks, we'll be exploring the world of credit and credit rebuilding, and I couldn't be more thrilled to have you guys all here with us. It's a subject that can sometimes feel complex, but together we'll break it down into manageable and actionable steps. So today we'll have the privilege of hearing from Shaquille Shaq Hall, who is an expert in the field and a very passionate advocate for financial literacy. Shaquille Shaq Hall is a mortgage agent. He's a professional and an entrepreneur with a wealth of knowledge and experience in the financial industry. He's the founder of Hall Real Estate Investments, providing investment solutions through investing, acquiring, and renovating real estate. He enables clients to achieve their financial goals and earn passive income. With almost a decade of experience in the financial industry and over 15 million in transactions, Shaq has helped hundreds of people to secure home loans, registered investments, retirement funds, and budget plans. He's not just a financial expert. Shaq is also a community leader, actively involved in nonprofit organizations just like mine, just like the BBPA, and he advocates for financial literacy and the power of credit in order to build wealth. So thank you so much in advance, Shaq, for sharing your incredible expertise with our community. And with you guiding us, we're in capable hands, exploring credit and financial empowerment over the next few weeks. I hope everybody's ready. Let's go ahead and get started. Hey, Shaq.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you so much, Chanelle. I love the intro every morning that we've been doing this so far. Always puts a smile on my face. A pleasure to do this. I'm very grateful to be on this platform, to be speaking in front of you guys today. And just like every week, I would love some engagement. Today is going to be a conversation. We are going to be talking about credit as we have been for the last couple of weeks and going forward for the remaining of the term up into December. So today we're going to be talking about the foundation of credit and positive credit habits. And building a strong foundation. Okay. So before we get started, I just want to make sure the energy is here in the chats. If I can get some fire emojis. I know it is Saturday morning. You guys could be doing anything in the world, but again, you guys decided to tune in to get some valuable information with the BBPA and to learn more about credit and credit rebuilding. So I'm very grateful. Just get some ones in the chat so I know you guys can see me clearly. So I know you guys are awake, tuning in, hearing my voice very clearly. And then we're going to get the show on the road. Perfect. I'm seeing some ones come through now. Perfect. Everybody's awake. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. All right. Before we get started as well, I want to let you guys know about an exciting event that's happening in Toronto area. And it's called the Millenniums to Millionaire Conference, M2N Con. That's happening November 11th. BBPA is a community partner of this event, and I think this event is going to be tremendous. They're partnered up with as well EYL, and they're going to have a tremendous amount of guests that are coming through from all over the world. Local celebrities as well as people from the States that are going to be talking about real estate, financial literacy. You have the CEO of Hutzy Financial, Tafari, as well, too, that will be there. You have a sales leader by the name of Daniel G. Ian Dunlap, which is the master investor. So you're going to learn a little bit about stocks and day trading. So real estate, day trading, financial literacy. You're going to learn about credit as well, too, and Tafari's program at Hutzy Financial. Tremendous event. So if you haven't gotten your tickets, you definitely want to get it as soon as possible. I think early bird is going to expire very soon, but early bird tickets are now available. So it's beautiful. Somebody dropped the link in the chat box. So get your tickets. Hopefully everybody can make it out. I think it's going to be a great event to not only network, but get some valuable information and take away some great knowledge when it comes to financial literacy, real estate, and all the above. All right. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and let's get the topic started. So again, as I mentioned today, we're going to be talking about budgeting for credit and rebuilding. Okay. So again, every week it's kind of building off each topic, but today specifically, we're talking about budgeting for credit. So when it comes to budgeting for credit, it's very important that, we know what a budget is, right? And a budget is basically analyzing your financial situation of what's coming in or what's coming up. So before we get started, as I mentioned before, this is not going to be a presentation where you're going to see slides. This is more of a conversation. So hopefully I can get some interaction from the audience, because I have a question for you guys this morning. And I want to know, how often do you track your expenses, and how does it affect your financial situation? So let's start off with that question first. And as always, if you have a response, if you can participate, you can either unmute yourself or raise your hand so we can unmute you, and then you can respond to that question, or you can type in the chat box. So I'll repeat the question again, is how do you currently track your expenses, and how has it affected your financial situation?
I know we have to give everybody a chance to warm up, so I'll start as usual.
Okay, no worries. Appreciate it.
Obviously, being a person that is in the finance industry, not that we all listen, but I track my expenses quite frequently. I use an application on my phone. I have different applications for like business, and obviously we use accounting solutions, but then I have like personal fun apps that I can use to track like my shopping, my bigger purchases, gas, and that kind of stuff. But you guys let us know. I know it's early, everyone's getting warmed up. I track my expenses at least 3 to 5 times a week, I would say. So you guys let us know, how often do you track your expenses? What about
We
you,
want to
Shaq?
know good or bad as well too. If you're expensive, how has it affected your financial situation as well? So how often do you track your expenses, and how has it affected your financial situation? So expenses are very, very important. So I'm interested to hear from the audience. How do you currently track your expenses, and how has it affected your financial situation? And if you want to participate, please just say your name and what you do, and then I'll go ahead and answer the question.
Natalie Tate said manually by paper about 2 to 3 times per week. And Samoy says, I use a budget template that I create for the month. I don't do it often because now it's embedded in my brain. I usually set it out for the month and then I don't forget it. Dwayne Davidson said, I track once a week. I use Excel spreadsheets. So we've got some different answers there, 2 to 3 times a week manually, budget template that we don't really use anymore, and once a week using Excel.
Okay, I love it. I'm old fashioned as well too. I love some of the responses that we're getting so far. I think the best thing in the world is always see pen to paper. In this digital era, a lot of people don't use pen to paper anymore, or have notebooks, or carry some type of financial book or a log. I remember back in the days when I used to work at a bank, there's some people that had the actual debits and credit. I don't know if anybody's old enough on this call to remember those bank books that they had, physical bank books. And I remember there was a machine that would print as well too on those books as well. And it's literally just tracking their expenses, their debits and their credit. Nowadays, there's apps. There's so many different applications that we can utilize. There's a great one with TD. There's another one with I think RBC as well too, that automatically has a category and categorizes your expenses. So great tips. And somebody mentioned Excel. Spreadsheets, Google Sheets. I think that is the most valuable one as well too. It's very simple, straightforward. You can customize it however you like, but the goal is, again, tracking where your money is going. Now it only is important to make the money, but we got to understand where is it going as well too. So, thanks for the feedback so far, what you guys have provided. And you guys are mentioning some great, amazing tips. So when it comes to budgeting, going back to the topic, expenses are very important. And the significance because of expenses is we seeing exactly where our money is going. And from there, we can understand what we can do to minimize our expenses. We can now categorize our expenses in terms of wants, needs, and then we can subcategory some of our expenses into certain categories that it's going to, whether it be food, entertainment, whether it be miscellaneous, whether it be emergency fund, whether it be whatever the case may be. There's different categories for different expenses that you can categorize, and some of these apps will do it for you automatically. Okay, but it's very important to track your expenses to create a clear financial roadmap, and identifying areas where you overspend, identifying areas where you probably go over budget, and spending too much in one area. And it's great to track it week by week or month to month. There's people that mention they have a different time frame that they do it. Somebody said that they track their expenses, and every so often that's embedded in their head, so they don't have to do it. Maybe maintain it every single month. So that's great as well too. Now, there's different techniques when it comes to budgeting effectively. So another question I have for you guys, again, keep the feedback going because I love it. It makes these calls a lot fun and engaging. Is what budgeting methods or tools do you currently use? Because I really want to talk about tools and resources that we all can benefit from and we can all leverage and all use together to, be better when it comes to credit. When it comes to credit, budgeting is very essential because, and that again, it's going to create a clear financial picture, but I'm going to tie it back in towards the end. But the question I have for you guys, as I mentioned before, is what budgeting methods and tools do you currently use, and how well do they work for you? So, for instance, I'm going to talk about two tools that I use. One of them I already mentioned, Excel. I use Excel for almost everything. I use Excel as part of a sub portion of my CRM. I use also Excel for creating basic budgets and a basic financial statement. So my income statement and my balance sheet. I'll use Excel spreadsheet to create a budget through there. So for you guys now, the audience, what tools or resources do you currently use, and how well do they work for you in your day-to-day?
Here we have, I find the apps, Samoy said, I find the apps are hard to use and I can't customize them how I want. I'm trying to shift to Excel templates through though to help with calculations, I think. So I guess he's just trying to convert from using apps and applications. I know a lot of people say that they find the apps hard. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few apps. Some of them are easy, and there's apps that do it automatically for you. TD has one called TD MySpend that automatically tracks your expenses for you. There's another one that I used to utilize. It's called YNAB, and it's an acronym for You Need a Budget. You can look it up on I think Google Play and Apple App Store. So YNAB. That's another one. And another one I used to use, and I've heard good reviews on it as well too, was Mint. That's another one that tracks your expenses, and it also helps you invest some of the remaining of your surplus cash flow as well too.
And
Anybody else want to share any budget resource that they've used that they had a good experience, or maybe even a negative experience that we can kind of have more of a conversation about, or any tools or resources that they currently use when it comes to budgeting?
Nishane also said that he uses Mint. It allows him to track his different bank accounts and investment accounts as well, all in one place. I don't know, even I'm interested in that, Nishane. If you want to come off mute and tell us about that. I didn't know that there was an app that you could integrate your investment accounts and your bank accounts or track multiple accounts at once. So that would be cool to hear more about.
Oh, hi. Good morning, everyone. Mint for me is a very good tool because I know I have two separate bank accounts, like one for personal and like one for school. And I know I'm not going to open those individual apps all the time. So like Mint has allowed me to like put my accounts all in one place. And it also integrates the budgets from those accounts into the app. And if you have any investment accounts, it'll put that there as well. And it'll show you like when your investments go up and down in the app. It'll also show you subscriptions. So like if you're a person who forgets subscriptions often, or you subscribe to stuff that you just wanted a trial for, it'll let you know like, hey, that trial is coming up, cancel this if you're not using it. And it also lets you know how long you've been subscribed to certain services and whether your bills are higher 1 month, or just basic like features like that. And I find it very useful because I don't have to visit each individual app, and kind of automates a lot of my budgeting.
Thank you.
Automation is key. Automation is key. No, thank you for that response. I think when it comes to Mint as well, I think you mentioned a great point when it comes to Mint is, again, having it linked to multiple bank accounts. Like type in the chat the number of bank accounts that you may have on this call. But for me specifically, I know I have at least 3 of the top 5 financial institutions. So it's hard to sometimes, track everything together, right? So when you have resources that can link it, you can see everything in one profile. And Mint does a great job of doing that. So I don't know about everybody else in the chat, in the audience. How many of you guys have multiple financial institutions? And if you do, just type in the chat, whether it be 3, 4, 5. What number of bank accounts do you have? And do you feel like, an app like Mint will be beneficial to utilize, maybe tracking it in one place of your expenses, of things that come out of your bank account, of debits?
Dwayne said he's old school. He's been trying to keep his receipts till the end of the month to understand how he spends his money, but he finds that using Excel is pretty helpful to make sure his expenses are actually paid. And he's with Tangerine.
I love the old school. There's nothing that beats Excel, no matter what. But I'm still interested in other people to see if anybody. I can't see the chat though. Let me see if I can pull it up. Is anybody commenting in the chat?
Yeah,
Somebody
we've
said
got
six.
three.
Wow.
I'm the
Oh,
somebody.
that's you.
I'm
Oh, you're
someone.
six six. Okay.
Some
We
people
got
said
three,
three,
four,
4, 3, 3. We got a lot of threes. Three sounds like the lucky number.
five.
Stephanie.
Okay.
Stephanie's trying to
Yeah.
top me with 5.
Five. Okay. That's good. Again, apps like Mint, you can have everything together in one place. Investment accounts as well to track your portfolio. So it's great. So we got Mint, we got YNAB, we got My Spend. I think RBC has, I forgot the name of it, but they have a smart one, I think, on their platform that does it as well too, in the application. Or you can get paper and pen or Excel. Excel is a great resource that never fails. So let's talk about some techniques as well too when it comes to budgeting. Who here has heard of the 50-30-20 rule? And that's a rule I really want to talk about. And some other budgeting tips as well too. That not only have I learned when I was in university that helped me out a lot, but it's also listening to other financial experts, other people in the industry that have these philosophies and trying them out. Because it's creating a plan. When you have a plan and you have big goals, it's budgets. It all starts with the budget, especially financially. Seeing what comes in, what comes out to get to that major goal, whether it be by buying that first property or saving for that car or that trip, whatever it is. But it all starts from coming from budgeting. So anybody have heard of the 50-30-20 rule by any chance? If no, you can comment
Natalie,
yes or no.
yeah. Natalie explained it to us. I've heard of it. Anybody else let us know, yes or no?
Perfect. Natalie broke it down in the chat.
Yeah.
Amazing. Perfect. So yeah, that's what it is. The 50-30-20 rule. Essentially, the whole concept behind that strategy when it comes to budgeting is 50% of your expenses should go to your needs. And it's very important that we justify our wants versus our needs. I think that's the very first step when it comes to budgeting. Some of us may justify certain things that we want as a need, but we need to really identify what it do we need to survive on a day-to-day basis, to make sure that we are getting through life, right? So your 50% should be going to obviously shelter, water, gas to get around, right? And it should be covered by most of your income. So Natalie wrote in the chat, 50% of your income pays for your fixed costs, like rent, exactly, rent, telephone bill, utility. And then the 30% now it should be going towards your wants. So these are variable expenses in life, right? These are things that fluctuate. So this is our things like your lifestyle costs, your grocery, your travel, your entertainment, other expenditures that you may pop up as well too. That's 30%. And the last 20%, guys, should go towards your investing. It should go towards saving. It should go towards growing your capital. So it's a very simple rule of thumb to have in your mind of, not only things that come in your account as your income, but more importantly, your expenses and categorizing that. So very simple, 50% goes towards wants, 30% goes towards needs. Sorry. 50% goes towards needs, 30% goes to wants, and 20% goes towards saving and investing and allowing your capital to grow. And that can be in multiple different vehicles, whether it be a going to a bank and putting it into a mutual funds or high interest savings account, whether it be invest to stocks, whether it be trading it, but allowing it somewhere where it can grow and invest. So very, very simple tool strategy that I feel like anybody can utilize to start their budget journey. And it's really great when you can plug it into something like Excel, where you can visually see it of what's going towards your wants, what's going towards your needs, and again, categorizing your expenses. So just to kind of summarize that real quick, it's doing your bank reconciliations, going through your bank statements, seeing exactly what's debited out of your account, and categorizing those. Whether you're using an app, whether you're using your Excel spreadsheet, whether you're using pen and paper, the 50-20 rule, 50-30-20 rule is another strategy that you all can incorporate as a basic budgeting strategy. Another budgeting strategy is called zero-based budgeting. And I'm going to go through it very, very quickly. Zero-based budgeting is something that I heard from somebody called Dave Ramsey. Has anybody in the chat or on this call have heard of Dave Ramsey? Chanelle, put your hands up. What do you know about Dave Ramsey, Chanelle?
Now I get to answer this question.
Yeah. What do you know about Dave Ramsey?
Let's give everybody, I read a lot. So I read a lot and I watch a lot of videos, but let's give everybody else a chance to answer. Everyone knows who Dave Ramsey is. Yes.
Yeah. So he has podcasts. He's somebody, in my opinion, very controversial in certain areas as well. He doesn't believe in debt. And real quick in his story, he just racked up so much debt that he went through a lot mentally. And that's the thing about debt as well, too. Debt not managed properly can lead to depression. It can lead to a whole mental instability. You don't feel like going out of bed. Somebody's calling you down because you owe them money, and it can create a real burden, and really deteriorate you. So anyways, he's somebody who doesn't believe in debt at all. Like he talks about ways and strategies where people can eliminate debt and beat their debt demons, of what he calls it. So he talked about this strategy, and I first heard about this strategy from him, the zero-based budgeting strategy. And what that means is you track your income of all your money coming in, and essentially you allocate everything so that way everything balances to zero. So very similar to like a budget, a balance sheet where you have your assets and your liabilities, and it has to balance at the end. The zero-based budgeting strategy talks about all your income that's coming in from your job, from your side hustles, from anything that you're making capital from, your income, and then now you're allocating your expenses in categories. So that way at the end of the budget, whether it be for a time period of a month, it equals zero. So it's really good strategy for somebody who really wants to allocate all of their funds and make sure it's going into direct areas. So making sure they're taking care of their variable expenses, making sure they're taking care of their fixed expenses, making sure they have a little bit of money to live life as well too, for entertainment, to go shopping, and then more importantly, having a little bit of money to spend or to invest and grow for them as well. The ultimate line, or the ultimate idea of this strategy, is to make sure that everything balances out and is zero at the end of the day from the income that comes in. So those are two main strategies that that I've learned about, that are very simple and straightforward to incorporate. Who here has heard of any other strategies that they would like to share, they would like to talk about as well too? I know we talked about some apps. I know some people shared different resources and tools that they've utilized so far. But anybody using a specific strategy that when it comes to budgeting that they would like to share as well?
I know for me, neither of, and I know for a lot of people, these two strategies work. I'm also curious to know if anyone uses these two strategies or if they think that one is better than the other. My opinion is, I would say zero-based is not my favorite for our community. I just find that it puts us in a position where we're back to kind of feeling like we have to use all of our money. And Dwayne said he uses the zero-based strategy. For me, I like to budget more reserved, I should say, a conservative budgeting strategy, meaning that I attempt to use as less as my money as possible and to maximize the savings in the investment portion. So that's my perception. If anybody else wants to tap in, and don't forget, guys, if you want to talk, you can speak as well. Come off mute, raise your hands. So yeah, he said the zero-based budgeting strategy helped him stay out of debt. And Juan Antonio said Remit Sethi's is also very similar. His also includes a mindset shift as well. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, Remit Sethi's.
I was muted. I haven't heard of that one. I would definitely like to hear a little bit more about Remit Sethi's, if you don't mind sharing, Juan Antonio.
Yeah, Juan Antonio, maybe come off mute if you get a chance. And Dwayne said he's heard about it as well. So tell us about that.
Is my mind working? I mean, mic working? No?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So I really like his. It's very similar to yours. Probably maybe small changes in the numbers for actual percentages of what's allocated where. But in terms of the mindset part, and this is what I remember from what I read a long time ago, but it's more like no one should feel guilty of how they spend their money. And it's very similar to this net zero thing where if you're okay spending a lot of money on going on, let's say road trips, for example, which in order to do that, you make sure you cover your investments and savings, but your rent is low, that's okay. But if you really like your spending time inside, maybe it's okay that your rent is a big expense. Just like having the principles down where investments are covered, savings is covered, but that extra money, what you spend it on, that's for you to decide. To cover the basics and then spend it how you want.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
And
like
he
that's
also
like
says,
that strategy.
sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead,
Yeah.
Juan.
And I just saw in the comments the automatic flow that he mentioned to where make sure it's set up so you don't even have to think about it because you shouldn't like be thinking about saving and investing all the time. But if you can set it up automatically, then you can get time to just enjoy that. So yeah.
Got it. Got it. I like that strategy. It sounds pretty straightforward. I'm sure Shaq is on the back end just looking into that a little bit. But I like that mindset. I think that relates a little bit more to what I was saying to the audience was I think that's more me. You decide on what your expenses are and what is significant to you, prioritize that, and then allocate to your number one priorities first, and then the rest is discretionary. Hold on, Michael's got his hands up, so let's see what's up with Michael.
Morning.
Michael, how are you? Good morning.
Excellent. I'm trying to listen to all sort of stuff at the same time, but I can't miss this program on a Saturday. It's very, very good. What I'd like to say about budgeting, and I do consider myself as an expert in this area. I'm a FCPA, licensed accountant, and I run my own practice. So I really spend a lot of time on numbers and my approach, and I've heard all this stuff because I'm a old guy now, so there's all sort of different titles they've applied to the concept of budgeting. And and even though we mentioned two here and a person mentioned a third, conceptually to me and practically how you apply it is your budget is how you deliver on your expectation, on your objective for whatever you want to do. We tend to apply budget most of the time to financial stuff, but budget is applied to anything in your life. It could be you want to go on a diet and how you proceed to do it. You want to go to the gym, how you produce to have muscles and what have you. You can apply your budget to time management. You're in university, you want to plan how you're going to prepare for a final exam. You budget your time, budget the books you're going to read, the chapters you're going to do per day. So budget conceptually is how you plan to deliver on whatever your objectives are. And if I think if you put that in a framework when it comes to your financial budget, and I do like the concept of the 50, 30, 20, and there are other concepts that do that. But when you think about the elements of your planning to deliver on your budget, three things pop in my mind whenever I do any kind of budget, either personally for business or I work with other clients to help them. What are the things you can control? Because there are things in your life that you do that you can't control. You either can control it or you can't control it. Is it discretionary? And it's not necessarily tied to control. There are things that you must do and you have no control. You live in somebody's house and you're paying rent. You have no control over that, and it's something you must do. So they're not just interchangeable terms. And the other one is whether it's fixed or it's variable. There are things that you can, like some people might believe their utility bills are fixed, but it's really not fixed because every utility bill is driven by usage. If you want to minimize your gas, you budget, how frequent you turn on the thermostat or you turn it off. If you want to manage your telephone, you determine how many calls you're going to make, whether it's long distance or round town, that sort of stuff. So, I think when you think about the budget, if you look at, and government and person is different. We are on fixed income. So a lot of time we start with X amount of money per week, and it's how we can spend it. And just to go off on a little tangent, one of the big challenges with mental health that is happening now is people are having financial problems. They just can't live, irrespective of how budgeting the 50, 30, 20, or the prioritizer or whatever you do. They just don't have enough money to do the things they want to do. Can you imagine if your rent is 2,000 a month for a basement apartment and you're working 2,200 a month? That's like 90% of your budget is something you cannot control. It's fixed and it's not discretionary. So as I listen to the stuff, the message I'd like to leave is that you look at what you do, you look at your income, your sources of income, and you look at the elements that you have to spend them on, and they fit neatly into your category, that 50%. So if 50% is what you want to do, it might not necessarily cover 50% of your salary. You might find out that your needs are covering 80% of your salary. So even though you want to apply that 50%, 30%, 20, so I would say look at it holistic. And probably try not to put a label on it. The label is good to start with as like a template, but then you have to work it as you go along, especially personal budgeting. When you do budgeting, government is a different kettle of fish. They decide what they're going to spend and then tax you on it. Most personal budget, you start with the revenue, is what you're getting and how you're able to spend it to do the things you want to do. But that is just the two concept I'd like to leave. That a budget is how you plan to deliver on your expectations, your objective. And that's one thing. And let's look at the elements. Try to find out what's control, the things that you can control, and those that you can't. What is discretionary? Things that you can decide to go on a trip or not go on a trip. And things that are fixed. It will remain the same, every month for the next 12 months. Or it can vary. And a lot of things that we think are fixed. I can tell you from my own personal experience back in the days. A lot of things we think are fixed. And the journalists will tell you nothing is fixed over time. But even in your short term, a lot of stuff that you think these are fixed, you can't do without them. One of the challenges in my own household now with my kids, and they're adults, they believe they have to change their phone every year. At least once per year, they have to change their phone, and they believe that is a fixed charge. And then when they buck the toe and they come to me and I say, okay, I'm going to help you out, but listen to this. They realize, no, you can still have a high 10 and wait a little to go to the I-15, and you can save that $300 difference to do what you're coming to me for now. So that's what I just wanted to leave, at least for now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing. We love hearing from you too, because Shaq and I, and I'm not about to call you old, by the way. Shaq and I are younger part of this generation, and it's great to hear your feedback and to hear you kind of let us know and remind us that there's a lot of things we can do without and still survive, to be able to attain the goals that we want to attain financially, as opposed to stressing about things all the time and stressing about finances. So I liked what you said. Thank you for sharing that. Shaq?
Yeah, I appreciate the feedback as well too. Because what Michael had mentioned as well too is budgeting is, I know we're talking about financial because we're talking specific about credit, but he put it a good point there that budgeting can apply to a lot of things in life, with goal settings, time management. So, and I'm glad he mentioned that as well too, because I want to tie everything together at the end. Because at the end of the day, budgeting is going to be about habits that you're going to be creating for yourself. And, it's not easy. It's easy to start, right? Some of the tips and tricks that we're talking about now, in theory, it's great. We all can try different things and start, but it's that consistency and doing it, time in and time out, where it's like someone mentioned before, it's second nature. You're not even thinking about it. Unconsciously understand what's going where, and you have that budget in mind. So thank you, Michael, again for sharing great valuable points. And guys, continue to share if anybody else wants to talk about their experience budgeting, their perspectives as well too. By all means, you can stop me at any given point.
We have a comment here too from Samoy. And I
Okay.
actually found this interesting as well. I find Michael's input very valuable. Exactly. I agree. I personally prefer to manipulate 50, 30, 20, depending on the month and what I need. And it helps to reduce the stress. I was also going to ask you, Shaq, for your input on that. I have tons of clients all the time that the very first start point, and a lot of people think when you're budgeting, you start with a template, but sometimes you have to start by addressing that you can't even fit into that box. And I think that's a thing for us from the beginning that Michael mentioned, that Samoy's mentioning now, is what happens when your income doesn't support you being able to even take a shot at that 50, 30, 20? Where do you start in that sense?
Yeah, again, like we're going through some tough times financially in the world right now. It's very difficult, but it's assessing ourselves and it's looking at our financial stuff in the mirror as it stands. It's seeing, okay, if we have reduced income, what are things that we can cut out? And I'm glad that this comment has come up, because it's going to lead me into the next point here that I want to go into a little bit more detail, because it's talking about again, analyzing more in depth your income and your expenses. So let me just pull it up right here real quick. So when identifying areas where you can cut costs and increase your savings, or let's just say you're working with less income, you want to focus on more of obviously budgeting even more, right? If your income is dropped, we got to make sure, and expenses, as we can see, are keeps increasing with inflation and cost of goods. What was before is now a lot more expensive now, and it's going to continue going like that in the future as well too, as we prices continue to rise, as we're going through a financial crisis right now. It's taking the time to talk about, to have these conversations, but looking at your financial situations and doing more reconciliation, seeing different areas where we can cut costs, maybe cutting certain many of our expenses that I see from people usually go towards, maybe a car payment that they can negotiate, maybe certain bills that keep coming every single month. And we talked about it before, even on credit card statements, is having that time to call in and negotiate some of these bills where you can cut costs, maybe cut on interest, because interest, another thing that's taking a toll on the money that we do borrow. How can we, as we talked about previous sessions, how can we negotiate and talk and reduce our interest rates, reduce some of the amount that we have to owe or pay back? Cutting out some subscription models as well too. Cutting out the Netflix, cutting out maybe the Spotify and Apple Music, and the things that come out every single one, maybe some of the Amazon Prime, pausing certain subscriptions if you can. These are strategies that's going to help you obviously find more money in some of the expenses that you have as well too. Maybe even meal planning. Michael mentioned the gym, right? Meal planning, buying, instead of buying food um, every day, is allocating a certain budget for groceries and meal planning, maybe for the week, maybe cutting out that coffee in the morning, maybe buying a coffee maker, learning how to make and brew your own coffee. All of these things are going to help not only find more money and expenses, but ultimately help you save more, build a better emergency fund if things happen, because in life, things do happen. But more importantly, having our capital invested and making it work for us. And that's some of the things that, I love talking about. I love speaking about, and I love being in environments where I'm able to learn even more about how to invest as well too. So thank you for providing that feedback as well. Because again, in times like that, it's more than ever is where you need that budget, is where you need to take that time to look over your statements, your credit card bills, your bank statements, and do reconciliations and figure out things that you can cut, and strategize in ways that we can reduce interest. And obviously our day-to-day lifestyle, what are the things that we can cut down to help us save more? So my next question for you guys in the audience, again, keep the feedback coming, we love it, is how do you balance paying off your debt and saving for the future? Is there anybody that wants to share ways of how they balance, if any, paying off their debt and saving for the future of their financial goals?
You got two old comments too, from what the topic that you just left. Leroy
Okay.
said 2 jobs. So I'm assuming he meant increasing income and opening up yourself to the idea of also leveraging the other side. So one side, cutting down the expenses, but then the other side is increasing your income. But then Dwayne tapped in and also said, for me, I like to look at how I can increase my income. So similarly, I'm currently trying to work as a freelance graphic designer. Woohoo. I just started over again, as sometimes cutting my expenses is not enough. And like, if I can find more work. So he's essentially, sorry, it's a bit of a paragraph, but it looks like Dwayne's essentially saying if he can find other streams of income, he's also down to tackle that task as well, because sometimes cutting his expenses just isn't enough to create wiggle room.
Amazing. No, I like these feedbacks as well. Because again, that's the other side. The other side is focusing on other sources of income as well. We're in a day and age where people are making money on YouTube, TikTok. There is the Ubers, there is the Skip the Dishes. There's different platforms, freelancing there's Fiverr. I've done I had some tasks that I needed to get done around the property, and I didn't want to hire a contractor. I found this app called TaskRabbit. It's called, I'll put in the chat box here for you guys. That's an app as well too, where if you're handy and you have the time, you can earn some money doing that as well too, helping somebody move, or doing basic drywalling, lighting. Electricians are on there. There's so many different people that are making money off of this application, and it's great for the end user. So yes, budgeting for expenses is very important, and cutting down your expenses to find more money to save and invest. But the other category as well too of finding other sources of income. Let me put in the chat box, TaskRabbit. This is another application. It's pretty cool as well. So if you're handy, you can make money on there as well, right? We know the Ubers, the Skip the Dishes. There's so many different ways, that we can generate income in this digital era that we have now. So great point, great feedback. But anybody else want to share as well too in terms of balancing before I continue?
I think give us your question again there, Shaq. And then
Well, the question was how do you balance off paying your debt and saving for your financial goals, if any? Because it's tough. It's definitely tough to balance. Anybody want to share?
Yeah, I'd like to. After you, miss, go ahead.
No, it's all for you. Go.
I appreciate you. I was just gonna say, one way that I've been taught in the past is to increase the income rather than decrease the expenses. I know that that is a bit more of a difficult thing to do, but it is still an option to increase the income, and that does help with reducing your debt and also saving for retirement and budgeting.
And sorry, can we get a name there? A name,
Oh,
profession?
absolutely. Sorry, yes, my name is Garfield, just like the cat. It's nice to meet everybody. This is my first time with you guys. Thank you for hosting this.
Thank you for sharing.
And Garfield, if you don't mind sharing as well too, what are some strategies that you've helped you generate more income? Because you mentioned you were taught to focus more on the income side rather than the expenses. I'm just interested to hear, if you don't mind
Yeah,
sharing.
yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest things that I found that's been helpful in businesses in the past is particularly helping others. Anytime that I found I'm in a position where I'm not getting the income that I would like, I found that working with other businesses, other owners, helping them out with whatever it is that they might need, even if it's in a completely unrelated business, I've always found that somehow magically business just flows my way afterwards. I really do believe in a concept of what I do for others, God will do for me eventually. And so I found that typically, whether it's just helping the staff in my organization or just finding other ways that I can add value to the business that I'm in, I've just found that generally in life, when I add more value than I'm being paid, I end up getting paid more than I'm worth eventually.
Love it. Honestly, yeah, someone said amen in the comments. You're preaching to a lot of people. That goes down to the law of compensation. I don't know if anybody has heard of that before, but essentially what Garfield mentioned, the more valuable you become, the more value you provide, the more income that you're going to be making. When it comes to income, I know we're not talking about income today in terms of the whole topic of today's conversation, but with income specifically, it's two categories, right, that you can make income. It's either providing a service or you're providing a product. I think the easiest way, in my opinion, and that's something that I've done for my entire life, is providing, similar to what Garfield mentioned, services. Services is another easy way that if you have a talent, if you're something that you're good at, or something that you can offer another person, you can charge for that monetary value and make more income. The other side is products. What is something that you could provide and give as a product to an end user that provides maybe some type of convenience that you can make some money as well too. So great points when it comes to income. And the way in the comment I'm just seeing right now saying I just make sure I take care of my needs, then I take care of my wants after. That's good. Yeah. So when it comes to like budgeting, going back, um, and we're talking about credit, right? One of the major things is, especially when it comes to reducing debt and budgeting as well too, it's understanding what's charging you the most. So prioritizing the high interest rates before the lower ones, and again cutting down the higher interest rates because that's eating away of most of your expenses as well too when it comes to debt. And of course, it's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So sorry, Shaq. Finish your statement. Go ahead, and then I'll interrupt you. You have comments. That's why.
Okay, we could take the comment. We could take the comment. I was just basically saying that we want to prioritize our high interest rates on any debt that we have on our credit reports because we know how to pull our credit reports from the last conversation is pulling it for Equifax or TransUnion and looking at your statements of which credit card, line of credit, loans, mortgage, where is your most of your interest payments going towards? And eliminating that or trying to reduce that as much as possible so that way we can save more money for an emergency fund and more importantly have our money saved so we can invest it further. So let's take some comments as we continue along.
Allison, I know your hand was raised to be able to speak. If you're ready to talk, just go ahead and take yourself off mute. And then we have a comment from Samoy saying, to balance credit versus savings, I do the bare minimum for credit payments from my budget and put more into savings and investments. The financial coach in me is telling me that as great as this sounds in terms of freeing up immediate money for you to do more of the things that you want, that is a little bit of a trap. So just be mindful because sometimes minimum payments are only taking care of interest or fees at times. Definitely saving and investing is good, but you do want to pay down on debt and investments as well, Samoy. And Allison, if you want to go ahead, you can go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. I just wanted to, I joined late, but I joined when the gentleman was speaking about the budgeting side of it. And I did want to say that prioritization is one of the key things, that I use personally. And I advise friends and family members, who may be having financial challenges because sometimes some of the things that we think our needs are not true needs are for. And I love the example that he gave with his kids with the telephone, for example, the smartphones, right? But we could even go further because even if you talk about your rent, prioritization, well, maybe you can find a cheaper place to rent, for example. Or if you can't afford rent, then maybe you need to look at not having a car because like is it a greater priority to have somewhere to sleep as opposed to driving a car, right? Like if it's at a point where you're finding that of your $2,000, 1,800 um is the rent alone, and you've got like that amount, just $200 left, then that's a drastic thing that you have to do. So I agree with all what you're saying in terms of finding other ways of increasing incomes, etc. But sometimes you may have to do some drastic adjustments as to what your needs are versus your wants, right? Like if you get to the point where you are finding that you've got just so much debt carrying. That was all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison, for sharing that. Shaq, what do you think?
No, I agree. It's again looking yourself in the mirror and making those financial decisions. It's going to be the theme of today's conversation when it comes to budgeting. It's really just analyzing what comes in, what comes out, and making the tough decisions. And sometimes, we may need to hear from somebody. We may need to hear from a financial professional, to hear those tough conversations of maybe not to get that brand new car, or to get a car that maybe their payments are a lot lower, or maybe just leasing versus financing. That may be a better strategy as well too for you, that you may have to have with a accountant, based on your financial situation. So yes, if you can't afford rent in a certain area, maybe moving and going further out, rent where you can afford, or buy or drive to you. There's a saying that they say in the mortgage industry as well too, for some clients that want to invest or buy outside of GTA, because GTA prices are very high, is drive to where you qualify. So that's another strategy some people have utilized as well too, and maybe investing, buy where you can afford, and rent where you want to live. Different strategies like that can help your financial situation long term. And at the end of the day, it comes down to, again, having that conversation, looking at your expenses, and figuring out what's the best solution for you long term, um, and making those short term tough decisions, of course. So prioritization, very, very key when it comes to budgeting. Um, as I mentioned before, especially when it comes to debt paying as well too, taking care of your high debt first. That way you can establish more money for an emergency fund, and savings and investing. Ultimately, the whole conversation, guys, again, as I mentioned before, it's really it's going to come down to consistency, and being adaptable for your budget, because things are going to change, times are going to change, things are going to go up, things are going to go down. But for the most part, it's being in control of your financial situation. And it starts by having these conversations. It starts by jumping on calls, learning. It starts by having these conversations at a dinner table, with your family. And making sure, some of the people on this call have kids, making sure we set our kids up and we talk about money, we talk about credit, we talk about ways of budgeting, and starting them young. Maybe that leads to another question that I would love to ask the audience as well too. Are there certain budgeting tips or tools that you guys, for those who have children, have incorporated into in your child's lives? And I'm interested to hear some of the strategies some of the parents on the call could share when it comes to budgeting, and some of the things that they've done with their kids, at early ages. Anybody want to share that as a parent, when it comes to budgeting, and conversations that they had, or tips and tricks that they use with their children?
Oh, so many parents. I'll start, and then there's two more people. So of course I have a little princess. The number one thing I did, 4 days old, our RESP. I was about to name the wrong product. RESP, savings for school. And then subsequently for that, I've opened up 2 more accounts for her for long-term savings. But that is my short and concise answer, is that my main priority for her is educational savings, and then making sure she has her first home, of course, too. And then let's go to Stephanie next. Steph, your turn.
Good morning. Once again, a fantastic session. I have 2 young ones, 11 and 8, and they have chores. So they have to work for their money. They have weekly allowance, and we have 3 like Tupperware tubs that they have. One is to save, one is to spend, and one is to share. And they know that 50% has to be saved because they have no expenses, a minimum 50%, and the other 50% gets split between their spend and their share. And then of course share it to donate to a charity around Christmas.
I love that. I'm stealing that. That's nice. Tangible, it's original, and it helps teach your kids about money right in front of their face. It's so positive. I love that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Okay,
So,
Garfield. Oh, go ahead.
oh, sorry, that's awesome. I'm not a parent, but my mom did that with us as children, where we had our lunch money or break money and bus fare in tubs for the week. We got it for the week, even when we were like at primary school level, right? And you were responsible for taking out your money per day that you were going to. So she had it apportioned, if it's $5 per day or $20 per day, whether you were carrying lunch or whatever, you may get as an extra break, right? And we had to do that. And if you took out more than what you needed for the week, then you were on your own, because she gave every one of us our money for the week. So we learned how to budget, basically, how to manage our own money from we were quite young.
Thank you so much. Was that Allison? I think so. I think that was
Oh,
Allison.
yes, it was.
Okay. Thank you so much. Garfield, go ahead. You're next up. Let's hear.
Awesome. Yeah, like Allison, I'm not a parent as yet, but one thing my parents did instill in me is was actually tithing. And I did find that with giving 10% of whether it's my allowance or once I started working, magically I was still able to come up with everything I needed. And it really grained into me this idea of when money is put in the right place, magic would, if you want to call it magical things or just the hand of God, works to provide for those who are responsible. So tithing or even just giving to charity, I think, is an option for parents to help their children.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Garfield. Even in being part of the Black community and many other underserved communities, as I'm sure many of us in here are. And Marcy, I see your hand there too. It's really important to change. I noticed Garfield and a lot of others. I love the fact that you guys are talking a lot about mind space, head space, and just perception towards money and towards finances. It's really, really important. A lot of people in the Black community, Caribbean community specifically, we have very negative perception and a very negative relationship with finances and with money. And tithing, giving to charity, things like this help us develop less attachment and more of a healthy relationship with finances and with money, making it easier to budget, easier to prioritize, and so on and so forth. So I love that you keep on mentioning that, Garfield. And Marcia, you can go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everybody. For me, when we moved to Canada and I learned about the CCB and started getting that, I literally would sit down with my kids and I'd split it between both of them. I had an Excel sheet and I basically created different pockets of, I guess, quote unquote, expenses, savings, things like that. So like Garfield, I made sure that they had their 10% tithe for church. I made sure that if they had expenses, for example, my daughter started music. And as much as, yes, as a parent, I could pay for it, I could say, you know what, let's create this as an expense for you. And then she had her own expenses. She also had a like what do you call like pleasure money, fun money. But then we had to make sure that before even getting to that pleasure money, that you had something that you were saving for an emergency or for future or anything like that. So then we'd always make sure we allocate that as well. And I would still, okay, at times I would say, okay, so what percentage do you think you should be putting into, like your little saving area just for pleasure? Do you think you really need so much? I try to have the conversation with them, so I'm not totally dictating everything, but more speaking to them so they understand the different concepts and why we would want to do this versus that. So I tried, that's what I've done with them. So we meet every month, sit down in front of the Excel sheet, and we go and we allocate the different sections for that.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Marcia. You got a lot going on, Shaq. So I'm going to take Michael, and then we've got some stuff in the chat as well. Unless you want.
No, I'm loving this. No, let's keep it going. I'm loving the feedback of different people's strategies that they learn from their parents or they're incorporating into their children's lives. Because again, these are the things that help that next generation. Some of the stuff that we've instilled in us from our parents have been tremendous. I'm pretty sure, and some of the people who's talking in the chat box, I know they're well off because of these things that other people learn. I've always been taught, a wise person not only learns off of their mistakes, but they learn off of the mistakes of other people as well. So, yes, keep it going. We're all learning from each other, and I love this feedback so far. Let's hear from Michael. I think that's the next person.
Go ahead, Michael, your floor.
From my school days, do you remember the piggy bank?
Yeah.
Even in some of the commercials I'm seeing now through the banks and even through my own institute, they're going back to the piggy bank concept. I don't want to repeat what some of the folks said already about, my kids had to actually give them their allowance for the week for school, and they had to learn to ensure that they manage it on a daily basis and so on and so forth. But just going back to the piggy bank, we talk about opening a bank account, which is good. But I grew up on having a big container in my house where you throw the spare cents, and at Christmas you break it open, and you're surprised the amount of funds you have in there as part of teaching the kids to save. You can go back to that old school piggy bank where you have an actual saving pan in the house and you throw the spare change in there. If you come to my place now, there's a big jar with $5 and coins in it. And a lot of time when you read it, it's $300, $400, $500, $600 in it. So just an incremental addition to what I've heard so far. We can go back and get kids doing their piggy banks, and they open it at Christmas time or at a birthday or what have you, just to get them in that habit of, you can save. And when you save, yes, you have no minimum saving. Right? There's no minimum saving. You save whatever you can afford, and you can start it right there.
Yes, Michael, we love hearing from you. You drop the gems for us. My daughter definitely has a piggy bank. We love the idea of the old-fashioned piggy bank, and I also see that in the banking commercials. TD's a main one. They got the little piggy bank, the little dollar sign, just getting people hopeful again about money as well too, knowing that it's possible to save to long-term goals. So Justin, go ahead there, your hand's raised.
Yeah, so similar to to a lot of other people, I was introduced to tithing and saving and stuff growing up as well by my parents. But I think something that was really cool that they did was when I was buying my first laptop, they introduced me to the idea of a loan. So I had an allowance growing up from doing chores and everything, but when I wanted to buy a laptop, they introduced the idea of, okay, we'll cover the rest of the cost for you, but you have to pay it off over a certain number of years. And I was only like 12 at the time. So luckily it was a zero interest loan from my parents, obviously, but just being introduced to that concept of having to pay back that sum of money over an extended period of time and like understanding how that works, everything was really great for me, and seeing what machine I could buy that I could afford to pay back that loan in a reasonable amount of time while still having some fun money to spend as a kid. So I really appreciate them for doing that.
Justin, I love that. Thank you for that. I'm actually writing that down here because saving is one thing, but the concept of debt is also another thing that kind of keeps us in a tough financial place. I'm always working with my clients, but they say what do they say? If you train a child, you won't have to reteach a grown man or something of that sort. And we're going to deal with that as adults. So it's better preparing your children to understand that when you've borrowed money, you will have to pay it back, as opposed to super just trying to get them to save and make enough money to support their life. Also learning how to manage debt from a young age. I borrowed this from mom and dad. I've got to pay it back. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Shaq, I'm going to get to some of the comments too before they rack up on us. You can't spend what you don't earn. Denzel was saying that was from our prior chat. So Samoy said, yes, I have a 9-year-old girl. I set up a chore chart to get her income, and I allow her to budget for what she wants and what she needs and what she wants to share as well. So similarly to Stephanie's concept. I think Shaq also mentioned meal plans. So we sit down and decide what she wants for the week, and I allocate her grocery money to that. And then she makes a shopping list and we go to the supermarket. So the concept of doing grocery shopping or taking care of expenses together. Garfield just tapped in as well about mindset. Leroy said, money usually buys freedom and time for adults. So I think spare time to build on something money comes and goes. Leroy, if you want to free up your mic and tell us a bit more about that, I want to hear about that. Alicia says, my daughter has a piggy bank, and when it's full, we go to the bank and let her deposit savings into her funds into her savings. Marcia said, I forgot to mention that I take them to the bank to deposit their money as well. And she refers to visualization and actually performing the activity so they can see their money adding up, as well as learn how to use the banking system. Two more. Leroy said you could go on redbubble.com, buy $100 worth of clothes, and pay $17 a week. That's good if you have a stable job. So this is like an afterpay, I guess, for shopping for children and stuff. And then Samoy said, yes, I like that idea from Justin. Definitely good. We'll be incorporating it. Floor is yours, Shaq.
Perfect. I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying all the comments, the feedback, the stories. And it brings me joy. Because some of the things that I remember as well too, it was when I was in the financial institution, was seeing people start young with the habits. Again, it all comes down to habits. It brings it right back into today's topic about budgeting. But having multiple accounts for different purposes, having the mindset when it comes to generating income, getting out of debt, saving, investing, and growing. These are the things that long term again have tremendous outcomes financially for building wealth. So again, I love all the feedback. I love the strategies, the old school stuff, just like the piggy banks. So continue providing the feedback. There's going to be a survey as well too at the end of this call as well. Just remember to always fill it out as well and provide more feedback. So that way each and every week it gets better and better as we go along. But let's tie everything together now. So we talked about budgeting. We talked about prioritizing. I talked a little bit about consistency, which is the most important thing when it comes to this. All these tools, these resources, different strategies as well too that we're talking about today. It does take a lot of consistency, and it's good that because it takes a village to not only raise a family but to create wealth as well. We need to hold each other accountable, create accountability groups. That may help as well too, help you accountable to get to some of your goals as well. It's great that we have calls like this that we can hold some of each other accountable and learn about different strategies and learn about different learn about different budgeting tips and tools that we all can incorporate in our day-to-day lives. So let's connect it now. So when it comes to connecting budgeting and credit, the reason why we talked about budgeting and this topic was a part of the segment is because when it comes to budgeting, it's creating the habits. It allows you now to increase your credit because you're budgeting for the expenses that you have that you may be putting on a credit card. It's now going to have you in routine to make your payments on time in a timely manner. So when you're making your payments on time, it also increases your credit as well. And also you're going to be reducing your debt. We're not just making minimum payment, we're allocating more and we're budgeting more against that interest amount. And ultimately bringing down our utilization, which we all know is a great factor at 35% of our credit reports, which increase it as well. So that's when it comes down to budgeting. It's really going to tie into credit because we are now thinking about the debt that we have. We are thinking about the expenses that we have to take care of. And now we are thinking about making our payments or actually doing the actions to make our payments on time and reducing our debt utilization ratio. And of course, we talked today about a little bit of strategies of increasing income and focusing on income as well too, which ultimately will help your debt to income ratio, which bank and lenders typically look at when it comes to financing and giving you more credit or more credit products, that is. So we'll wrap up today's summary. I'll give you guys 5 key points that we will also share with you guys on the social media platforms. Make sure you guys are following BBPA because they do an amazing job of their marketing materials, and you will be able to see some of these takeaways from today's call. But basically, the 5 key components that we talked about today was budgeting, is essential for credit rebuilding, and budgeting is a fundamental tool for a process of paying and rebuilding credit. It also helps financial discipline, and it ensures timely payments and debt reduction. Then we talked about effective budgeting techniques. So we talked about techniques like the 50-30-20 rule, a phenomenal tool to start off. And we also talked about the zero-based budgeting. And others shared as well too some of their strategies, as well as tailored to individuals and financial situations to help manage expenses effectively. Then we talked about identify cost cut strategies, analyzing our bank statements or credit card statements, our expenses, and where our money is going. How can we cut costs, increase saving, analyzing discretionary spending and negotiation when it comes to negotiating bills, when it comes to negotiating interest rates on certain debt repayments. And then we talked about balancing debt repayments and savings, paying off the high interest savings or interest credit products first. Building that emergency funds and savings is very crucial for financial future and obtaining your financial goals. And then lastly, again, we talked about consistency and adaptability, being able to adapt with our budget with today's times and being consistent, maintaining a budget and being willing to adapt to all the circumstances, long-term financial success, to review and adjust and ensure our financial goals are met effectively. I'll leave it off with a quote, and if anybody else wants to share as well too, they can definitely share as we wrap up the call. But this is a quote that I had when I was in university, when I was just starting to budget, when I didn't know what budgeting was, and I was studying business in school as a broke student and having student loans and money, a little bit of money coming in from co-op, and really starting my first business. I really had the mindset of making sure I understood what was coming in and what was coming up, because I didn't have the help of mom and dad at the time, and I was on my own. And this quote was on my dorm room, and it sticks to me to this day. And it talks about, I'm going to say it for you guys. It's watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, they become your destiny. Essentially, what I get from that quote, even reading it to this day, is talking about one thing leads to another. So when it comes to budgeting, when it comes to credit, they all have a overall puzzle piece to your financial future that ultimately lead to your destiny. So I want to encourage everybody on this call to create accountability groups, to continue coming on to these calls every single week, engaging, helping each other out, sharing your feedback, and let's learn together. Let's grow together, and let's make sure that we're building our financial futures, not only for ourselves, but for the next generation as well too. So I'll leave it with that. You guys have the takeaways today on budgeting. And hopefully all the apps, the suggestions were dropped in the chat box, that you guys were taking notes, and now you can incorporate and have that action in your day-to-day. Thank you guys so much. If anybody else wants to share any last feedback or comments, we'd love to hear it as we wrap up today's segment call.
And don't forget, everybody, as soon as you leave the webinar, the Zoom webinar, there will be a survey. It automatically opens and pops up for you guys. Just do it really, really, really quick. The feedback's great. Last week we had tons of feedback. We did really well, and you've only got a couple weeks left with us. So do the survey so you can get your points in, get your questions answered. And don't forget to sign up for the M2M conference. It's less than 2 weeks away. We're all vested. We want to see you guys all there. And then we've got some more announcements for you guys. Let me get the next slide there. So navigating the entrepreneurial journey, insights for small business owners. I heard already we've got a lot of small business owners in here, or people who are looking to increase their income in the economy as it is. Wednesday, November 1st, that is this Wednesday at 12 p.m. We've got that. Then we've got BAIDS. It will be week 4 of digital dualism, crafting a cohesive personal and professional brand on social media. So for those of you who are interested in growing your social media branding in that kind of area of things, make sure you sign up and join this event November 2nd from 2 to 3 p.m. And of course, we've got Shaq and I think Tafari Bailey to come in the closing weeks as well with what we're doing, our community space for credit building and credit recovery and financial literacy. Thank you guys for all of you who continue to come, and we will see you guys again next week. Is that our final announcement? And then of course, stay in touch, as Shaq mentioned. Let's make sure we follow BBPA, we follow all the sites, all the social media, so that we can stay up to date and stay locked in, continue to connect and to facilitate these spaces. All right, guys, thank you so much to everyone who's here. Sit back, watch the outro, and don't forget to do the survey.